There's something enormously satisfying about expelling Windows from your computer to install a Linux installation. Unfortunately, I can't do this with all of my computers though, because a fair amount of my workflow still requires me to use Windows. I still use a lot of Adobe products. I still use SolidWorks. And of course, my workplace also requires me to operate in a Microsoft environment. That's why today I'll be installing a dual boot operating system on my trusty HP ZBook. I've already got my live install disk ready to go.
It's been live.
And for this installation, I'll be using Linux Pop. Linux Pop has native support for NVIDIA GPUs. I expect to be able to utilize the A2000 on board straight out of the box. Earlier, I installed a second NVMe drive in my ZBook. My goal is to have 2 operating systems, and I can choose to select which OS I'd like to boot without installing the GRUB bootloader. I've got nothing against GRUB, it's fine. I want to eliminate that one extra step every time I boot my computer. The method for doing this is to use the BIOS boot selector instead. It's going to default boot into Windows. If I want to boot into Linux Pop, all I have to do is press the boot selector shortcut key, select the second drive when I want to boot into Linux. As simple as that. The first thing I'll do is insert the USB drive over there, turn on the laptop. I'm then going to spam the F9 button until it says entering boot menu. Now I have my options here, either Windows Boot Manager, my USB drive, or my second NVMe drive. Right now I'm going to choose the USB drive and I'll boot with that. One of the problems that can pop up is secure boot. Now that I've disabled secure boot, I ought to be able to boot with the USB. I now have the option to try or install Pop OS. So I'm just going to click enter there. The install wizard is automatically started. This is where I'm going to choose my unused NVMe here. There's no partition here on the unused drive, so I'll need to modify the partitions. We want to be very careful with GParted. GParted can destroy all of the data on your Windows drive. I definitely don't want to use this partition here. It says Microsoft, it's a FAT32. There is BitLocker information, and the other identifier, of course, is that this is my 1 terabyte partition. My second drive was a 512, so I'll select this drive here. On this drive, I'm going to create a new partition. So I'll use all of the drive. It's ext4, and I'll click the tick here to apply. I can exit GParted, and you can see there is now a partition here. I'm going to use that partition. I've also made a mistake here. I need to have a boot partition with at least 1 gigabyte. So I need to modify this again.
On a bit and see me. Okay.
So I'm just going to delete that partition.
Certainly.
I'll create a new partition, make it 1024 megabytes. The remaining section, I'll add a partition here and I'll call that root. Okay, hopefully that satisfies the request. So I'm going to use this partition as the boot, and I'll use this partition as the root.
I'll let you promote it.
Okay, now I can click erase and install. Now I have the option to restart the device, which I'm going to click. I'll take out the USB stick. We've booted directly into POP for the first time. Linux POP is up and running and ready to go.
Okay.
What I'll do now is I'll reboot and demonstrate how the system now just happily boots straight back into Windows. Or maybe not. Looks like I've got my default drive incorrect. Yes, I've got POP at the top and Windows second. BitLocker can give you grief if you start making changes to the boot priority and secure boot settings without suspending BitLocker first. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Windows can, of course, see that partition there. I have no intention to mount it when I'm using Windows. If I ever want to boot into POP, I just hit the F9 key on startup. This didn't cause me a problem when I set this up on my workstation, but it is causing me an issue on this ZBook, is the secure boot problem. I'm going to resolve that by right-clicking on C drive here, clicking Manage BitLocker, and clicking Suspend Protection. Now that BitLocker is suspended, I'll reboot, enter BIOS, I'll turn off Secure Boot, save and exit our Windows to boot again. Resume BitLocker. It looks like BitLocker has resumed by itself. Now I'll restart. I just want to hit F9 to load the HP boot menu. Select POP OS, hit enter, and we're away. POP OS loads nice and quick. So there I am in POP OS. I'll do a restart now and demonstrate how Windows opens up happily. So there it is, instant, easy switching between Windows and POP OS. No GRUB menu to worry about. I can access POP Linux whenever I want just by pressing that F9 button. If you're curious why I'm installing POP Linux on my ZBook, keep watching, because I've had some requests for future videos that involve demonstrating how some things are done on Linux. I'll be responding to those requests. See you next time.